Kids do mud cake and
She was eating both. There's nothing on it. The dog?
Not that.
Oh.
But even
Yeah, sitting with
being,
water.
sitting in water and being treated, I just
Maybe they already complained about having
yeah.
I asked her if she would look at
Anymore. They don't think.
They don't have the liquid because it's alcohol. What's it considered important?
Well, ask for
And that's
Rachel.
from the fine. I would say that this morning, but beyond,
See, I'm trying to do it after the middle. So you like after every.
And then you sanitize all the.
oh, I meant like the kids, they used to have this hand sanitizer.
no, yeah.
When they came in, like got on the bus, they had to sanitize
Yeah,
it.
you must have had something that was just.
Most drivers don't think the kids sanitize their hands. They did last year.
Right, but the fine actually just like that, I'm saying, individual dates that you made because it's considered a was the I'm not waiting for it. Yeah, I'm sure. No, it's all.
So if you take a lighter, you go like this.
I will try it.
Why not? It's a
No, it's not. It's not your fault.
If it was in a can,
If it was a can, I would. Yeah, it's come up.
one of the kids accidentally dropped their mask right in their breathing.
Well, it appears that it is approximately 6:32, so I would like to call to order the second regular meeting of the Board of Directors of SAD 52, and if Yuri could lead us in the pledge, that would be most appreciated.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So our first order of business this evening will be to act on the minutes of our first regular meeting, August 19th. Any errors or omissions noted in those? If not, we'll accept those under general consent. Communications, Kim.
Thank you. I would like to report the following resignations. Angie Banks, Lebanon Area High School Food Service Assistant, effective September 10. Sarah Thurston, Lebanon Area High School Physical Education Teacher, effective August 26. Elizabeth Mullen, Turner Primary School, Ed Tech 3, effective August 27. Kelly Pomerleau, Levitt Area High School Special Education Ed Tech 3, effective August 20. And Felicia Courtney, Lead Central School Special Education Ed Tech 1, effective August 31. I'd also like to report the following transfer. Lisa McCoy, Pre-K Ed Tech 2 from Turner Primary School to Green Central School.
Thank you. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
There are no adjustments.
Thank you. That brings us to committee reports. Finance, Yuri.
We did not meet this week. We're going to meet before the next board meeting on the 16th.
So finance will meet before the meeting on the 16th. PTB, Jessica.
We did not meet.
Also not met, but stay tuned on that one, I'm sure. Curriculum policy, Joanne.
We did meet. Most of our discussion was for a policy about school board ethics, and we're going to look at it again because there's a lot of overlap between the two we were looking at. And I think we decided to delete the 3 we had here, didn't we? So we decided to delete the 3 that are in your packet, and that's always a good thing.
Thank you. Student representatives, we don't have one of those yet, but we'll eagerly await that as we get into the year. 5.5, administrator reports. And this will be a team effort, I presume, since we have multiple folks reporting out.
Good evening. Yep, I'm going to go first to report out on start of school. I'm dropping pens everywhere. So this week we started with staff on Monday and Tuesday, and we had 9th graders here yesterday. And along with the 9th graders, we had approximately 25 upper class students that were here to serve as mentors for our freshman orientation day. And they worked with the approximately 160 9th graders that we had here yesterday, which is a significantly higher number than we've had for an incoming class for quite some time, so that was good to see. The 9th graders started their day with a class meeting, which was quite refreshing. We haven't had a class meeting here in the auditorium for quite some time, so it was nice to have the whole crew here to talk about start of school and to welcome them all here. They spent the majority of their morning outside, working with their mentors and doing team building activities with their advisor groups and their advisors, and culminating in a paper airplane activity on the football field, which is something to see when the wind's blowing, but nonetheless crowned an airplane champ while we were out there. And then they moved on to a scavenger hunt where they went around the building and campus and just got to know different places around with their groups. In the afternoon, they were able to, or after lunch, were able to run through all of their schedules, so they knew where their classrooms were and got to meet their teachers. And all the side things, direct, like quick ways to get there, we're still working that out, but for the most part, we're starting to get there without a lot of delay. And let's see, we ended the day out in the courtyard, or not in the courtyard, but around campus, where the HBTs paired up and their mentors, their upper class mentors, worked with them and did a 20 minutes or so on a question and answer, so they could just ask questions of people who really knew the ins and outs of the building and how it worked and what there were for activities to do. And that was pretty interesting to watch, and the questions that were asked were really good ones. Today we had everybody on board, so we had all 4 classes here. Students ran through all 8 class periods. We crammed them all into one day with some extra time for lunch and HBT. I was able to have class meetings with them all, again, welcome them all back to school, and just have an opportunity to talk about class elections and student council and class officers and upcoming homecoming, which is coming up pretty soon on the 25th, just to get things going. They also had an opportunity to Buzz Media ran a Kahoot game, and if you don't know what a Kahoot game is, it's basically a quiz show game that they do online, and they race to see who gets their answers in first. So it's a little competition between the HBTs there. And after that, they finished up the last couple of class periods. It was a hectic couple of days, but things went really well. Students seemed excited to be here and glad to do school again. It's going to take us a couple days to get us all back into school shape. I think we're all a little worn out after the last couple of days, but after we get that back under our belts, I think we'll be good to go by the middle of next week. So it's been a really good start of school. I guess that I could have said that could have been it, but it's gone very well the last couple of days.
Hi, good evening. The energy in the building this week has been pretty amazing. We had staff Monday and Tuesday, welcomed 7th graders back on Wednesday. I was just telling Superintendent Brand, it's the first time as an administrator, and even when I was a teacher, that we just welcomed 7th graders at the middle school level. And it's a game changer as far as just being able to slow the roll a little and show them around. All students came today, went pretty flawless. And so we are, as I reported out last time, just about 300 students, which is higher than we expected. But we still have room at the middle school, and we're making it work. Last time I did not get to acknowledge a few groups that I wanted to just acknowledge tonight. Our custodial staff did an amazing job getting the building ready. And today was the first time that I didn't know that I had to do all 3 lunch duties every day, so that's been an interesting twist to my job description. But I actually love being able to be with all of the students. And the food service staff at Trip Middle School is amazing. The lunch that they offer and the percentage of students that are now accepting hot breakfast and lunch every day is pretty remarkable, and so I'm quite impressed with that. And so happy to entertain any questions, but other than that, just really, really great couple days.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Marston, and principal of Turner Elementary School. Currently, TS has an enrollment of 286. August 26th, we had our ice cream social on the playground, which was a great success. And August 30th, we had a grade 4 ice cream social on the playground, and I could just tell how much parents and families liked having an opportunity to meet the teachers there and be able to kind of reconnect, lots of families reconnecting and talking. Of course, the 4th grade team is a new 4th grade team, so I could see when kids were talking about how nervous they were, and teachers were saying, yeah, we're really nervous too, but I could see everybody get really calm and excited for the start of the year. Grades 5 and 6 did virtual communication to parents and students introducing themselves in their learning environments. And we talked quite a bit about moving towards a model where all grades would have a time where they just meet outside, because that seemed to be really successful. In regards to transportation, we were unsure as to how many parents would be dropping off and picking up their children, so we decided to implement the pickup patrol again this year. And as with any other year, the transportation process was slow moving on the first day. Parents were wonderful and patient, although I'm sure many stressed a little bit getting to work. But however, happy to report day 2, it was much smoother and took a third of the time than it did the day before. I anticipate by the end of the week, we'll have a process that will be streamlined and running smoothly. And we had about approximately 120 students dropped off each day. All one-to-one devices have been distributed to classrooms, and new charging stations and cabinets are out and are in the process of being set up. Tomorrow, technology packets will that include the policy, borrowing, and COPA forms will be sent home with students, and these forms will need to be completed and returned before students are allowed to take devices home. When we return on September 7th, students will be signing into their Google Classrooms, which will be the platform in which they will complete the majority of their classwork. Really looking forward to the start of the year, and I'm really excited about the opportunities we'll have as we collaborate as a staff. So a great start to the year, and I think we're going to have a great year this year.
Good evening, I'm Ryan Patry, the principal at Turner Primary School, and we welcomed back 198 kindergarten through 2nd graders over the course of the last 2 days, which is 5 more than last year. Next week, we will be welcoming 80 new pre-K students, which is 19 more than last year. And so we will have a total of 278 students, which is 24 more than this time last year. I want to thank all the teachers and parents that made an effort to make a connection during the pandemic. Our pre-K parents the last 2 days and tomorrow have been participating in individual screening appointments where they get to come into the school through the back door, one-on-one and meet the teacher, and their child gets to go around and see the room. And that's really great for pre-K parents, because this is where their 4-year-olds, their most important person is going to be learning, so it's been very positive, and it's also been great for me to get to meet the new parents. Our K parents and teachers also had individual meet and greets this summer, which were very successful. And then our new grade 2 teacher and our long-term sub grade 1 teacher hosted popsicle events on the playground. And one of the things I remember most was one of our second graders came to me when we were outside on the playground and talked about how much they missed the monkey bars and how it had been so long since they had seen them. So sometimes you just never know, but we're excited and we've had a great start to the school year. The staff had 2 great full workshop days. It was really rewarding to get to spend that time together. We haven't been able to do that. And so we spent some time establishing norms, celebrating our learning community as a school, and then talking about ways that we can create positive learning communities in our classrooms. So we came up with a ton of awesome ideas and great ways to engage our students, because many of our students have never been to school 4 days or 5 days a week. So that was quite interesting, and so we have some great ideas on ways to connect our students back into the community. We also talked about what technology integration might look like, which is an opportunity for teachers to work together to build instructional opportunities for students that include technology. And we also talked about eSpark, which is a new differentiation tool that we're hoping will help meet the needs of some of our students. Finally, I want to thank all of our staff and our parents and students for your support donating school supplies, being patient with our parent pickup and drop-off line, and attending our meet and greet events and helping ensure a smooth transition to the start of the school year. Thank you very much.
Wasn't sure if I was getting rushed there just for a quick second. You can go. Doug Parker, principal of Green Central School. And I did a little bit of reflection and realized this is actually my 15th school opening as a school administrator. And it's been phenomenal. This one really stands out. We had a virtual open house option for our teachers and kind of did a little teacher voice and choice. Some of the teachers might have chosen to make individual phone calls. Some might have had a Zoom drop-in or a YouTube type video shared with the parents. Here's the classroom, here's a little bit about me, that type of thing. So some of that's still in progress, some of that has been completed. So I've gotten some nice feedback on that thus far, and a lot of traffic on those. Yesterday, we welcomed 334 students back at this time. We had a great influx of students, particularly at the tail end of things. And Monday and Tuesday of this week, a little ahead of myself, as Principal Patry mentioned, staff spent a lot of time in a variety of different trainings, activities and planning sessions, both school-wide and with their teams. We also had recognition of new staff members and folks who have been here at milestone amounts of time, 5 years, 10 years, and for Green it was 5 years and 10 years. So hopefully we'll get a little bit more longevity moving. Our first day was spent helping students get to know one another, and a lot of movement throughout the school. The teachers brought students throughout the school, taught them the procedures and expectations at every area. Here's the cafeteria, here's our procedure, here's what we expect, here's the gym, here's the playground, rather than just talking about it, they actually brought them, and that tends to yield much more solid results. At the end of the day, we had a couple of social times for the kids out on the playground, which generated a lot of excitement, as that did not require separate cohorts like they were dealing with last year. So there, again, a lot of excitement. A biggie for Green tends to be drop-off and pick-up time. So AM and PM bus times for us are all hands on deck. That's anybody that doesn't have a class with them at that moment, we need you outside. We manage concurrent drop-offs for students in our bus loop, and then parents have been phenomenal in our upper parking lot. We started that last year with half the students at the time when a cohort was showing up. We're continuing it this year. It was well coordinated with our staff. The families have been super cooperative and very patient. Yesterday they estimated 65 to 70 vehicles, about 100 students were dropped off and processed those vehicles in about 12 minutes. So that's really incredible work. Afternoon pickups, of course, no surprise, require a little bit more focused logistics, a little bit longer time frame. That's going pretty smoothly as well. We had some really happy parents, it was pointed out to them especially during drop-off yesterday, reminding us as they drove away, like, just how long summer was. And so, so it was really kind of like that wave and like that happy wave. They were happy for the kids, but I think they were just as happy for themselves. Because it's a long time. Yesterday I did get a little stat. All of our students were dropped off at their homes by approximately 4:45 p.m. Seems a little late, but today that time was 4:15 p.m. So we estimate by the middle of week 3, which is typical, we'll have this running as expected with tightened up time frames. We're going to be fine. And throughout the school, the assistant principal Swenson and I visited the various classrooms. We had just ecstatic staff members and students. And you could tell the masks were stretching, kids were smiling, teachers were smiling. Everybody was so excited to be at school all together. And as we checked in, that excitement continued throughout the day, AM, PM, we were bouncing around. And we have no doubt, as long as we keep working together with students and the staff in school, and we work on these mitigation measures, that positive energy is gonna continue on so we can stay in school together. So that's what's going on at Green Central. Any questions? Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Danielle Harris. I'm principal at Leeds Central School. And one of the things that stands out for me this year is how awesome my building looks right now. My custodians just totally rocked it this summer. We had a major renovation going on in the intermediate wing, so the rest of the building got super extra cleaned while they were waiting to be able to get into that intermediate wing and get that cleaned up, which they did in an amazing amount of time at the last half of August. So we were able to start the school year looking really, really good. And I appreciate Ricky Emery and Dean Flanagan and all the help they gave us in getting all that major renovation done, cleaned up, and then the building back in shape for the start of school. So that was pretty exciting. We obviously had this teacher workshops days on Monday and Tuesday as well. And we all had breakfast and lunch served by the cafeteria, and it was delicious, and we appreciated that. In the old days, we used to come here to Leavitt Area High School, but it actually was really nice to be in our own home schools and being able to socialize with our friends there and to touch base again. So working and collaborating with their peers was one of the highlights for the teachers for those 2 days, because it's been a while since we've been able to do that. And learning about eSpark, which is the new pre-K to 6, well, pre-K to 8 intervention that we're going to be using electronically, was pretty exciting too. The population at Leeds Central School is almost exactly the same as it was last year. We sent 29 kids to Tripp Middle School, but we've only got 18 coming in for pre-K. So the class size of that, one group out, one group in, there's actually an 11 student difference, but we're up by 8 students if you take that out of the mix. So even though we're at 175, where we were at 178 last year, we actually had 8 more come in than go out, if we don't take into account the big sixth grade that left. Our PTC is always so awesome, and Crystal Barris and Lindsay Sawyer-Brown represented the PTC on Wednesday. They brought a bubble machine and balloons and music, and they were a welcoming committee for our students as they came off the buses and into the building, and it was just such a nice way to greet them, and the kids were so excited to be back. There were so many smiles, like Mr. Parker said, even under the mask, you could tell they were all smiling. There's so much happiness for the kids to be back together and in class. And recess is probably the best time of the day. They just love that they can play with all their friends now and use the whole playground instead of just their zone. And it's gone really, really well. We're back to using our cafeteria. Instead of 2 lunches, we're doing 3. And just the difference in splitting up the 3rd and 4th graders from the 5th and 6th graders is amazing. The noise level is incredible. Like, wow, how did we ever do this with double the kids in here? So that's been really, really nice as well. And I think the kids are really enjoying being back to that, having that social time with their friends at lunchtime. So our pickup and drop off is also going really well. We love our bus loop that we got last year. So the buses use the front bus loop and the parents use the outer edge of our parking lot, and it goes very quickly and smoothly. There's a lot more kids riding the bus and less parents picking up and dropping off this year. So it's going super quick, like about 5 minutes for drop off or less, and 10 minutes maybe for pickup. So it's been going great, and we've just been off to a great start at Leeds Central School. Thank you.
certainly sounds very positive. We appreciate hearing about that. And we'll turn it over to Superintendent Brandt for the superintendent's report.
Thank you. As you heard, we did have a really phenomenal opening in the schools this week. Everyone reported that students were extremely happy to be back, and staff was extremely happy to have students back. People were happy. Every school I talked to was just so happy. It felt wonderful to have everyone back in school again. This moment is truly worthy of celebrating because after 18 months of a hybrid model with intermittent periods of fully remote learning, we have all students back in school. And we learned through that 18-month experience that having students in person is the most effective way to meet their academic needs as well as their social and emotional needs. It will also allow us to put into place the mental health supports that we know are desperately needed by some of our children. So all of this is extremely positive. And our goal this year is to accelerate learning for our students, to support them in every way that they need, and to keep our students in school as much as possible. We had new teacher orientation on August 24th, and that is a chance for our new teachers to come together and meet one another. Thank you to our principals and our special ed director for being present that day to work with the newest teachers, as well as Assistant Superintendent Gillis. It's an opportunity for them also to get their devices, to ask questions, to hear a little bit about the strategic plan, and begin to get acclimated to our schools and MSAD 52 in general. Teresa and I visited each school on Monday and Tuesday of this week to meet with staff, to welcome the newest members to our team, and also to honor years of service. Thank you to Cassandra Boyd for all the organization that she did around the recognitions and the flowers with babies left. And I appreciate all the principals who were able to add some very nice and personal appreciation to teachers who have met those milestone years of increments of 5 years up to 45 years. So that was very, very fun for us. Our several principals talked about enrollment. Our October 1st, 2020 enrollment was 1,912 students. I talked to the board about that because it was a drop. That was our first full year of COVID. It was a drop in enrollment, and enrollment, of course, is a driver for subsidy. So we were watching that closely. So it was 1,912. Enrollment as of this morning was 1,976 students. So we know that enrollment fluctuates all year, but this increase is certainly very hopeful. And just for a little bit of historical perspective, so last year we had 1,912 students. The year before we had 2,002 students. The year before that, 2,005 students. And then in 17-18, 1,985 students, 1,965 students for a couple of years. So it fluctuates a little bit, but certainly having way more than the 1912 that we had last October, again, is very hopeful. Homeschool enrollments is something that the board had asked about earlier last year. As of August 29th, we have 55 students participating in homeschooling. There may have been some more from that day till today. In 2021, this past year, we had 110 students enrolled in homeschooling. And in 2019-20, we had 63 students enrolled in homeschooling. As I did last year, I will report on conditions related to the pandemic at board meetings. We are, of course, all hoping that conditions related to the pandemic will improve. At this point, cases are rising. Androscoggin County has substantial community transmission. The state measures community transmission, and they give each county a rating of either low, moderate, substantial, or high. So Androscoggin County was in moderate earlier this summer. It's now in substantial. We know that between 45 and 49% of our students are vaccinated. Those would be students between the ages of 12 and 18. So slightly less than half of our eligible students are vaccinated. We will soon know about rates of staff vaccination as well, because the state is mandating that we report that information to them each month. It will be de-identified data, number of staff, total number who are vaccinated. So we'll be doing that first submission by September 10th, and then each month we'll update that. I also, last year, did the same thing, which was to talk about the number of people in the schools who are either in quarantine or positive cases. So as of today, Turner Primary School has 1 student in quarantine. Turner Elementary School has 1 student in quarantine and 1 staff member who is positive for COVID. Green Central School has 1 student in quarantine, 1 staff member in quarantine, and 1 student who is positive for COVID. Leeds Central School has 2 students in quarantine. Tripp Middle School has 2 students in quarantine and 1 staff member in quarantine. The high school has 13 students in quarantine and 3 students who are positive for COVID. I'd like to thank our nurse at the high school, Krista Murray, who is working with our other school nurses to track that data on a regular basis so that we can give updates at each board meeting on those numbers. Another metric that is available to us is the vaccination rate for all eligible people of all ages who have had at least their first vaccination. And those rates as of this afternoon: Green 73%, Leeds 65%, Turner 73%. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Maine Department of Education continue to recommend frequent hand sanitizing and washing, distancing, completing the daily health assessment and staying home when sick, and implementing a screening testing such as pool testing and universal masking to reduce the transmission of COVID-19. So update on the pool testing. We have the license to pursue pool testing. I recently applied for the Buy Next Now supplies. And next steps include setting up our reporting of data, speaking with the Department of Education and the company itself about human resources support to get us up and started, and also sending parent permission letters for participation. Parent permission is required for students to participate in pool testing. And it's important to remember that those who do participate in pool testing do not need to quarantine if or when they are identified as a close contact, as long as they are asymptomatic. And this is another mitigation tool as we work toward our goal of keeping students in school as much as possible this year. At the last board meeting, a board member asked, and I think maybe some community members had asked, about liability and following the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommendations. Our insurance carrier informed us that we need to follow the CDC and Maine DOE recommendations to protect the district in the event of a legal action that alleges negligence. Also, like you've probably been reading everywhere, losses from all communicable diseases are excluded from coverage. And I think that is the end of my report.
Thank you. That brings us to public comment. Do we have folks in the public wishing to comment? Yep, actually, just hold that thought for a sec. Jessica had a quick question. Sorry about that.
Sorry, Kim. Can you repeat Levitt's numbers of quarantine and positive cases?
The number of people in quarantine?
Yeah, I missed the whole number for Levitt.
Correct. Yeah. Turner Primary School, 1 student in quarantine.
No, I'm sorry, just the high school.
Oh, the high school has 13 students in quarantine and 3 students who are positive for COVID-19.
And then can you give me a little bit more information on that liability that you were talking about for the insurance?
So, yes.
As long as the school is following CDC and DOE guidelines, we would not be liable? Is that what you were saying?
So they say that we should be following those recommendations to protect the district in the event of any legal action that would allege negligence.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that. We can certainly handle public comment as we did last time if folks would proceed to the microphone and let us know who you are when you do speak, so we can all hear you loud and clear, and so the folks at home can as well.
Good evening. My name is
Teresa.
Could you ask them to just sign in so that we can, by signing in, they put their name in there?
Was
Yep.
signing in up at the front the same?
Is there,
There's a sign up sheet on the.
Right, and I signed the one up front. Is that the same sheet or?
No, the one up front is a contact tracing sheet because we're a paper state, so we definitely want to support the paper industry as well. Thank you.
All right, so good evening again. Received a letter from the superintendent about the air purification system, and I gotta tell you, that's probably one of the...
Can you actually introduce yourself to us as well, please?
I did, my name's Steve McCoy.
Thanks, Steve.
So that is one of the best things that we can do during these times right now. The only questions I have on it are, what have we studied with the technology of the bipolar? There's quite a few different ways to purify the air, and want to know what we had from quotes from other companies that were out there. There's use of ozone, ionization that can create ozone, bipolar ionization that can create ozone. There's different ways to create free radicals, some safe, some harmful. So, which ones are there? That's kind of what I was looking on the air purification system, and obviously in conjunction with a HEPA filter and any type of pre-ionization that is going on prior to that filter will help capture many molds, mildews, viruses, bacteria, off-gassing of volatile organic compounds and chemicals. So, great idea. Just want to know what's going to come out of this air purification system on the out end of the ducted system. And from what I've read on the bipolar ionization, that it only lasts approximately a minute. So how long is the airflow travel, or your cubic feet per minute, pushing the air out of the ducts? Is these hydroxyls, so to speak, being dissipated before they even get into the classroom? And is an in-duct system one of the best systems? Or would it be, if you're creating hydroxyls to disinfect surfaces and airborne particulates, that we use a different manner of filtration, which could be potentially portable units, and or the ducted system has enough longevity to get the hydroxyls to the classroom and not create ozone. If it's creating ozone, then we may want to monitor the ozone levels that are being created inside of the classroom, because the ozone long-term can create scarring and lung deterioration, especially to developing lungs. So I wanted to talk on that right there, which is going to lead to comments of last week on the vaccination, and basically what you just said about the insurance and what is covered. Is it sounds like it's only going to be COVID-19 that is covered for,
No communicable diseases. Oh, sorry.
so no communicable diseases will be covered in the insurance?
Kim, is that something you can elaborate on?
So what our insurance carrier told us was that we should be following the CDC and DOE requirements to protect the district in the event of legal action that alleges negligence. However, losses from all communicable diseases are excluded from coverage, which is what we've been seeing pretty much everywhere with insurance.
Okay. And I ask that because if we are retaining different viruses and bacteria inside of our masks, and we have children or even faculty that are being basically contaminated by whatever viral or bacterial infection is being created in the mask, is the school now liable? It's a good question. So I want to touch on that very briefly, and I'm going to leave the things with the mask for a later date, but the insurance directly applies to what's going on in the mask. And if we're forcing every student or some of the students or everybody, the faculty, and they're getting sick because of things that they've captured in their mask, and they're breathing it in, who's going to be liable? In the past, the parent has always been liable for the child's illness. In the past, we've been liable for their broken bones or whatever it happens to be. We make that decision to bring them to the doctor or to the physician. And I'm just wondering how this is all going to work out with insurance if now somebody else is going to be liable for our child getting sick or getting hurt. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Josh Lappin from Green, Maine. So I just want to start off with that we are all Americans, and we should stand for all freedoms, medical freedoms as well. We need to put politics aside and who we identify with, because the majority of people these days seem to create their own personal identity based off of their political stand. And what I mean by that is if you're on one side, it seems like people are. It's either pro-mask, pro-Biden, pro-vaccine mandate, or if you're on the other side, it's pro-Trump, pro-non-mask, no vaccine mandates. It shouldn't be about that. We are Americans, and we should stand for freedoms, period, end of the day. We should be able to make those decisions for ourselves. And it's sad to see it's divided our community in a terrible way, which is sad. I wish we could find common ground, but it seems like you guys up front have decided and there's no common ground. And I was actually set up at the Green Transfer Station this past weekend collecting signatures, and in a week's time I've collected 215 signatures for optional masks. That's all we're asking for. If masks work, you're wearing them, you're safe, correct? That's the thought behind it. But I literally waved to everyone. I was very polite. And it was sad to see the people who didn't agree with me. They were very mean and snarky, made faces. I had one gentleman told me to fuck off, gave me the middle finger, and drove off. Because we have different opinions, guys, we're all human. We all have good hearts. It's all coming from a good place. So lose the negativity towards one another, please. If we take something away from this, take that. We're not enemies here. We're all trying to go through this pandemic and find our way through this. And we need to find middle ground. So with that, COVID has a 99.x recovery rate. And masks simply do not work to protect you. It's all about control, dividing us. I'm not for mask, you're for mask. We hate each other, right? That seems the general consensus. I don't. You guys have your own opinions, and I respect that. And so I was working actually 2 days ago at First Parish Church in Brunswick, and they have a box of masks sitting out for people who want to wear them as they come in. I decided to pick up the box and read what's on the label. And I'll read for you verbatim what it says. It says, this mask is not, and it's the blue mask that you're wearing up there, sir. This mask is not a respirator, and it is intended for general purpose practices. When properly worn, it reduces potential contact by the wearer to fluids, but it does not, says it right on the box, does not eliminate the risk for contracting any virus, disease, or infection. Says that on the box. And I'm sorry to call you out, but the cloth mask, if that is a cloth mask, that is absolutely the worst protection you can wear. If you truly believe in this, you would be wearing an N95 mask or a respirator.
So
just saying.
I am going to ask that if your comments are related to the policy the board enacted at our last meeting, if we could kind of circle back around to those and not speak with individuals about their particular masks. That's not really germane to what we're our
It's
businesses
a valid
this,
point.
this
Right.
evening.
It's an absolutely valid point. It is
So
valid.
per policy, all comments need to go through the
No,
chair.
we are allowed to speak. Let him
Through
speak.
policy,
Let him speak.
all,
Let
ma'am,
him speak,
You
please.
told us not to interrupt.
That is a
per
valid,
policy, all
point.
comments need to go through the chair, which would be me. And also, the chair has the latitude to indicate when a person has been speaking for a particular length of time, or may in fact not be speaking about something that is germane to the evening's agenda.
But it is. This is
it
very
is.
pertinent.
So I would turn it back over to the gentleman
families in
at
this community. And
the
I'm sorry
podium.
if you're the chair, but you need to listen.
I am now that the people that have taken the respectful route to go to the mass, through the mass,
Clear
who
bias.
knows?
Clear
English,
bias.
first language, second language this evening. If I could speak in a full sentence, I'd do well. The gentleman who's at the podium has the floor
He does.
currently.
You interrupted him.
So,
You interrupted
let's let him finish up, and then we can move on to other
Thank
folks
you.
that
Okay.
may want
That's
to
what we
go
were trying to do.
to the microphone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hopefully the woman in the pink over here can get off her phone. She's
Yeah,
been
right,
on
pay
the
attention long
entire
enough.
time.
So,
Okay.
I would like to
All right, guys, please, let me
continue.
just continue. Thank you. So this statement is literally made on the box to cover their ass, because it doesn't work. Just like the CDC, the insurance company is saying, if you don't follow these guidelines, we're gonna hold your hand to it, that they're gonna hold you liable. Look at what they're doing. It's about control. Now, I hope you know that SARS-CoV-2 virus is not going away. It's just like the flu. The same exact type of virus. Now, do you guys plan to be masked up for the rest of your lives? I hope not. I hope not. We need to stop living in fear. A 99.x recovery rate. 99.x. I'm sure as hell. Sorry, I lost my spot. So here we go. The influenza virus is actually more deadly to our kids than COVID. It's proven. Kids are not dying at an exponential rate with COVID. From COVID, whatever they want to call it. Also, fun fact, the flu vaccine in 2019 was only 25% effective. And as you see the vaccines now, they're talking about a booster. Do you guys plan to take boosters for the rest of your lives over a virus that is 99.x recovery rate? And I just want to let you guys know I'm not going to stop. I'm going to come to every meeting. I truly believe in our freedoms. I truly do. The masks do not work. They don't work. I wish everyone would shut the TVs off for a minute and step away. And I'm sure a lot of you would realize that this pandemic is not as bad as the TV is making it. Shut the TV off. Another thought is so through COVID, if you went into a restaurant and you sat down, you could take your mask off because COVID knew you were eating. So my thought was, is there a chance we could get restaurant tables in the schools so when the kids sit down, they can take their mask off? I'm not trying to be mean or put you guys down, but open your eyes to the bureaucracy of what is going on. You can go into a restaurant and sit down and take off your mask and you're safe. Shut the TV off, that's all I'm saying. As you can see, so far in just a week's time, I've gotten 215 signatures. I'm gonna continue grinding to get more and more signatures. I know we need affidavits to kind of make things move forward. I'm just trying to get our voices heard because there's 215 parents that disagree so far in a week's time that disagree with what you guys are doing, and it doesn't matter to you. It doesn't, which is sad because you guys are in control of our kids during the week. And you guys are forcing things on our kids that we don't want. My 11-year-old doesn't want to come to school because he has to wear a mask. He feels scared and suffocated in it. It's disgusting. So, like I said, if masks work, Why can't they be optional? If you wear it and you're safe, why does my kid have to wear it? Because they don't wear it. So, also, I just wanted to touch on a CDC study done from November 16th, this is on their website, November 16th to December 11th in 2020 in Georgia. And this is what they came up with from their own study, yet you don't hear about it, because they don't want you guys to know. It says, lower incidence in schools that require mask use among students was not statistically significant compared with schools where masks were optional. On a CDC study, on their website. It's on their website. I know this speech probably isn't going anywhere for you guys, but I hope it opens your eyes and realize there's going to be more and more people that sign, and I will, in the next month or two, I promise you, I will pack this building so you can hear everybody's voices. Because what you guys are doing is wrong, and you guys need to stand up for everyone in this community, not just the people on your side. There's 2 sides in this community. There may be 5 sides in this community, but we have to find middle ground. And like I said, if masks work, and you're wearing one, why does my kid have to wear one? Thank you, have a good night.
Just to clarify, so did you want to share the petition with us this evening, or were you waiting for a later date?
No, I'm going to wait for a later date. I want to get more signatures.
Okay.
But like I said, I have 215 signatures to start in a week. And I'm going to rally this town and open their eyes up, because what you guys are doing is absolutely wrong, to not give parents a choice on what their kid wears.
So we should just wait to see that from you?
Would you like to look at it? I want it back.
Nope, not until we can have it.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Got 2 more, so 217.
I'll sign it too.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's 218.
Next.
Hi, my name's Jimmy Childs from Leeds. On the math topic, I looked up some more information, different than I had before. Whether it makes a difference or not, I'm going to put it on the record anyways. I found a study that said, do masks reduce COVID transmission in children? Believe it or not, we could only find one single study, retroactive study on the question, and the results were inconclusive. Yet 2 weeks ago, or it was 2 weeks ago at the time, CDC sternly decreed that 56 million U.S. kids, vaccinated or not, should cover their face regardless of the prevalence of the infection in their community. Authorities in many places took the cue to impose mandates in school and elsewhere, and on the theory that masks can't do any harm. That isn't true. While some children are fine wearing masks, and some are, other kids struggle. They have fogging of glasses, so they're touching their face, touching their eyes when they're doing stuff. So if they get anything on their hand, they just move their hands to their face. Severe acne in other kids and skin problems. Discomfort causes learning difficulty. Increased airway resistance. It can lead to high carbon dioxide levels, which we already discussed, plenty of information on it. Vectors for pathogens when moist or used too long. Anxiety, chronic and prolonged mouth breathing can alter facial development. We can all agree to wear a mask for short periods of time, or maybe a few hours. I don't have a problem with my kid doing that or anybody. But it's the all day on the bus, all day in school. It's a long time, and there's, so it is well documented that children who mouth breathe because of their nasal passage being blocked can develop a mouth deformity and elongated faces. Psychological harm of widespread masking is even greater, a greater worry. Facial expressions is part of human connection. Covering a child's face mutes these nonverbal forms of communication. Emotionless interactions, anxiety, and depression. seeing people speak is a building block of phonetic development, and especially important for kids with disabilities. So kids with disabilities, I mean, they suffer more than the kids with not. You know, I mean, these are all things that some could say is abusive to children, neglect. I talked to child welfare today and asked them if knowingly I knew something knowingly had bacteria and I stuffed it on my kid's face all day, is that considered child abuse? And she was stunned because she never had that question, but she simply answered, yes, I think it is. She put me on the phone with another lady. I asked her the same thing. And they're really hard pressed to answer these questions but you know, it's a new world. We have to ask this stuff. And she agreed that it would be a form of child abuse if you knowingly know that something contains something that can make them sick. Okay? So Dr. Macri of Johns Hopkins and his colleagues found that $42 billion the NIH spent on covered research, less than 2% of it spent on covered clinical research. And not a single grant was spent to study masks in children. Not a single dime of covered money to study the masks in our kids. Not a dime. I mean, CDC, all these places, they get a lot of money from taxpayers and whatever else, and they're not even studying this, and they want us to fight about it or bring in amongst or divide each other, and they're not even going to put any money to study it. That's concerning to me, and it should be to every one of us. They're not even going to do that. We should force them to do that. You know? Any child that wants to wear a mask should feel free to do so, but forcing them to make personal health and development sacrifices for the sake of adults is abusive. That's what this person wrote. Before we order 56 million Americans who are too young to vote and don't have nobody lobbying for them except for us, we have to lobby for them. You know, let's see data showing the benefits and weigh them against long-term harm. So, you know, long-term harm, I mean, they already said that the vaccine won't even be, 2023 before they know much about it. So everybody that's taking this stuff, we're the test subjects. And so we're making our kids test subjects for masks, you know? What are you going to do in 5-6 years or something? And say something happens to your child, you know, and you could have prevented it from a mask, you know? I mean, I agree, a little bit of time, sure. All day long, you know, and then you say, oh, they're in school 5 days a week. Well, that's an extra day of being masked up, you know? And right now there's a group of parents in Florida that sent 6 masks to a lab and found 5 masks were contaminated with bacteria, parasites, and fungi, including 3 dangerous pathogens and pneumonia-causing bacteria. They detected alarming dangerous pathogens on the mask. There's a whole list here of what they are, but I can't pronounce half of them, so I'm not going to look stupid saying them. You know? But this just happened to a lab. So what I suggest is, and I'm going to do, is all of us take the masks of our kids, we'll bag them up, there's a lab right in Augusta, I got the phone number, or there's some universities, and we send them out, and when they come back, if they come back clean and negative, all right. Maybe we'll change our mind and mask our kids. If they come back with bacteria, fungi, anything that can hurt our kids, now it comes back to this libel thing and insurance companies. Because now you're knowing that these kids have bacteria on their mask. You know it, the lab will have reports and everything. You'll know it. You know what I mean? And like the child service lady said to me, if I knowingly do that to my kid, she'd come take my kid away. But I don't want to do it. So when them lab results come back, if we send our kids to school masked up, we're abusing our kids. A couple hours, fine. All day long, you know, I want to protect everybody, okay? It just seems like our government, they're not doing much to protect us. You know, look at our troops. They leave our people overseas. Leave them right there. Leave our military out. We keep these weapons out of our enemies, and they just armed our worst enemies. But that's a different subject. But it's true. So who is the government looking out for? They're looking out for us?
No.
Nope.
Not
the ones in power right now. So we have to do it. Eventually, we might have to come together as a community and rally up. If something bad ever happens, the Chinese or anybody ever comes here, we're gonna have to get together and stand together. And we'll all help each other. Masks don't matter. I got guns. You need help? I got some food. You need some food? I'll help you. The point is, we rely too much on the government, CDC, these places, and they're in it for themselves. They're in it for their own dime. How many of our politicians on a $200,000 salary are millionaires? Millionaires. I voted for people on both sides. I tell you what, there's 100% of one side that's a problem, and there's 40% on the other side, so I'm going to join the 60%, even though I don't like 40% of them. And I'll tell you I don't like them. You know what I mean? So there was another study published February 15, 2021, involving 25,000 children, found that masking are harming school children, physically, psychologically, and behaviorally, revealing 24 distinct health issues with wearing masks. Like I said, not everybody is going to have these health issues, but if your kids have the health issues, your family, you don't want that. You don't want that. You know, so you shouldn't push it on everybody. You know, the health issues and impairments observed in this study found to affect 68% of the masked children who were forced to wear face coverings for a 4.5-hour day. It included 17,854 of the 24,000 health complaints submitted by parents. Almost 18,000 of the 24 had health problems submitted by the parents. That's a pretty big number. You know what I mean? It's a big number. I mean, increased headaches, difficult concentrate, drowsiness, fatigue, malaise, and a third of the children experienced more sleep issues than previously had, and a quarter developed new fears. They was just scared of stuff. You know, we're supposed to make them not scared. Shortness of breath, dizziness, and hundreds experienced accelerated respiration, tightness of chest and weakness, and short-term impairment of consciousness. I mean, yeah, not everybody's doing that. They're not walking out of the school all sick. You know, they're coming home. Our kids seem pretty happy. You know, but it's short-term right now. You know, we can't do this for months and years on end. And if you watch these people in our government, they talk about masking up. If you ain't vaccinated, you gotta always wear a mask. They're out there on the tarmac while our troops are being carried away, and they all got masks on out in the open air. It's propaganda, like Josh said. It's propaganda. You know, sure, there's a sickness, and we need to try to fix it. We're not going to fix it being divided. We're not going to fix it if we don't know the information. See, I'm somebody that I'd never be here. I didn't like standing up in front of people. Didn't like it. But I'll do anything for my kids, and I'll do anything for you guys as kids. And the people that ain't here, they want to be here. Trust me, they want to be here. You know? I mean, and so if you talk about the vaccine, right? I mean, so my worry is if we don't do something about the mask, pretty soon you're going to want everybody and their kids to get vaccinated. Is that what, I mean, I think that's definitely a choice. I mean, because if you force a vaccination on our children, or school bus drivers, teachers, anybody, and they get sick, I mean, the drug companies don't have liable anymore. They can't sue them guys. You can't sue them. But, so, I got some statistics for you. Each year, 165 million Americans get the flu shot. There was 85 deaths reported in 2017 from the flu shot, 85, okay? 119 in 2018, 203 in 2019, okay? Between mid-December 2020 and April 23rd, 2021, at which point 100 million Americans received the COVID-19 vaccine, okay, 100 million, there was 3,544 reported deaths following the vaccine. That's 34 per day for 4 months. The vaccine has killed more people than all available vaccines from 1997 to 2014. That's 15 and a half years. In 4 months, they just killed way more people. Yep. But wait, it gets worse, okay? As of April 1st, 2021, 12,618 reports of serious adverse events, 118,000 regular adverse events. 118,000? I mean, that's a lot. But, okay, so as of July 16, 2021, 11,000 Americans dead from the vaccine. Now, listen, I'm not anti-vaccine. I'm not pro, I'm not anti, I'm pro-choice. Pro-choice. If people want to take it, you want to take that chance to be that 11,000 dead or not, 48,000 seriously injured, 100 people per day dying of the vaccine. I don't want to be in, I don't want to take that chance, but that's my choice. Okay, I have friends that get back, fine, they seem like they're doing great, and I pray to God that they are. You know, but when you talk about libel and stuff, and if it comes to the point where you're saying you have to get vaccinated, you can't come to this school, and people get vaccinated and something happens to them, you know what I mean? Who's liable? I mean, would you feel bad if you got to get vaccine, you got to get vaccine, and then all of a sudden some people died from it? Would you feel bad because you said, hey, I talked you into it. Oh my God, he died from it. If I talked you into it, I'd feel horrible. You know, I feel horrible. You know, European Union, 330,000 injuries reported, almost 8,000 deaths from the vaccine. And this is from the VAERS report, which is just like a 1% thing. This could be like 10, 15 times that, because not a lot of people know about it. You know, it could be a lot. So, I mean, I just don't want to see you guys try to mandate vaccines. My kids get the flu shots and stuff, they're all set. We're not pumping that stuff in my body. If my fiance pumps that in her body, she has a thing that can cause blood clots, and we don't know if my kid's got it. So if somebody goes and says, you have to do it or you lose your job, so you're okay with her maybe getting a blood clot? COVID-19 ain't that bad. I had it the February before last when our government wouldn't tell us about it. They said, oh, come to Chinatown, everything's safe, they said. I'm sick as a dog. My kid's right there by my side in my chair. Fine to this day. Fine to this day. And I was sick as a dog. And they're fine. Because the antibodies are stronger than anything. George Washington, the measles or chicken pox broke out. And what did he have to do? He had to infect the crew because he knew he was going to lose the war. We wouldn't even be here if he didn't do that. Antibodies. You know? So I thank you guys for listening. You know, I know the opposition is lined right up. And hey, we can all agree to disagree. You know what I mean? We can all agree to disagree, but it's pro-choice. And we just, you know, I mean, if these kids come home sick, breathing problems and sick because of masks, whatever else, you know, who feels bad? Because the CDC said so. I mean, the CDC and them people, I mean, they're a little corrupt right now. I think we can be better than that. And as a small town, we should try to do better. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jamie Johnson. I'm the mother of 3 children in the Turner School District. I prepared something to say, but I'm just going to start off by saying a few things first. The VAERS, that's a vaccine adverse event reporting system. So you can actually go on to VAERS, like when I got my COVID vaccine, I signed up for VAERS, and you go on and you just report whatever you feel and whatever happens to you. So literally anybody, and I mean anybody in the public, can go onto VAERS and put in any information they want. So that's all it is. It's a public thing. It's nothing in it is actually substantiated. George Washington actually mandated the smallpox vaccine. So that is actually why America exists, because when we went up against the British, our troops were vaccinated and their troops started dying of smallpox, and we won the war, in large part because of a vaccine mandate. So, go George Washington. About the masks, and sending them into a laboratory to have them tested. How many of you have been in like kindergarten or first grade and you do the Petri dish experiment where you take anything you have and you just like rub your finger in a Petri dish and you wait and you come back the next day and you look at it under a microscope and you get to see how much bacteria has grown on it and how much fungus has grown on it. Sometimes we used to do it with our shoe, with anything, hair ties in our hair. Everything we have, we all colonize bacteria, viruses, fungi on our body naturally. This would be an expected thing to find on a mask. People keep mentioning that these viruses and bacteria and carbon dioxide are building up in our masks and making us sick, and I just find it kind of ironic that these bacteria and viruses can stick in our mask and make us really sick, and carbon dioxide, but nobody seems to think that the same thing is true for COVID. So COVID also sticks in our mask. That's why they work. And I have been wearing a
Folks.
mask.
Folks, let's let whoever's at the podium speak.
I have been wearing a mask on a daily basis for sometimes 12 to 14 hours for 15 plus years, as have many of my coworkers, and we're okay. So this is not new. This is not something that's never been studied before. Healthcare workers have been wearing these for centuries, and we wear them not to protect ourselves, but to protect our patients. That's how they work. So anyway, 2 weeks ago, when we were standing here, the average daily cases of COVID in Maine was roughly 150. Today, that rate has more than doubled, and it stands at about 315 cases per day. So this conversation could be a lot different if we were seeing cases decreasing, hospitalizations decreasing, and severity of disease decreasing. But none of that is happening right now. In fact, the exact opposite is occurring. Numbers are rising, hospitalizations are increasing, and severity of cases are causing ICU bed shortages in much of the state. We have a greater need for mitigation measures now than ever before, which explains why so many other districts have reversed their optional masking policies and adopted mandatory masking protocols. But the thing is, there remains this deep divide amongst the public that seems impossible to fix. And I think it's time we try to seek common ground. Based on many conversations I've had over the past 2 weeks with parents, students, and educators, regardless of their feelings towards masking, they all agree that the most important thing is staying in school 5 days a week and being allowed to participate in their extracurricular activities. We can discuss a mask mandate at the local level. That's something that was left to individual districts to determine. But we can't change the Maine Department of Education policies on isolation and quarantine. These policies clearly state that if a school has a mandatory masking policy, then an exposed classroom student does not need to quarantine from regular school activities when they are at least 3 feet from the infected student. That policy is not something up for debate, and it must be followed by the district. Therefore, a masking mandate ensures that less students will miss school. At the last meeting, 2 brave high school students got up and spoke about their experiences from last school year. They expressed that the mental and emotional difficulties they experienced were not from masking, but from remote learning, quarantines, and not being able to participate in their activities. To quote an 8th grader that I spoke to, "I will literally do anything if it means I can go to school, see my friends, and play football." This masking policy will help guarantee that possibility for him. And lastly, I want to address a matter that took place at the last meeting that hit me personally. 2 gentlemen quoted the low number of pediatric deaths. I'll remind people that children aren't supposed to die, period. And he mentioned that only 1 child in Maine had died of COVID so far. But both men then emphasized that 1 death was too many. Another mother commented that the only children dying from COVID had other health conditions. While this all may be partially true, these same children live in our communities and attend our schools. Those children with chronic illnesses and disabilities also have the most to lose by not going to school. They are more likely to need additional services and accommodations that cannot be provided virtually. Doing everything we can as a community to protect these children by wearing a mask so that they can receive the free and public education that all of our children are entitled to should be something that our entire community can support, because 1 death is too many. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mariah Rink. I have 2 kids in the Turner School System and 2 more at home. I'm not a doctor or a scientist. I'm really good at Googling, but I'm not going to get up here and state scientific facts as if I'm some sort of expert, especially when one of my former science teachers is sitting a few feet away. I could easily argue either side at this point because there's a lot of information out there on the internet supporting both viewpoints. So I used my Google powers instead to look up the Maine Department of Education's standard operating procedures. It wasn't completely necessary to Google since our superintendent outlined some of those most important protocols in her plan, but I think a lot of us glossed over that because of our strong feelings about masking, both for and against. So here it is, under section F, isolation and quarantine. A little bit of it was just covered, but I'll read it word for word. The close contact definition is exposure within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes within a 24-hour period or any direct physical contact. Close contacts must quarantine for 10 days from COVID exposure from school and school activities, except if at least one of the following conditions applies to the close contact. I'll skip to the condition that applies here. The school has a mandatory masking policy. If so, then an exposed classroom student does not need to quarantine from regular school day activities when the student's close contact was at least 3 feet from an infected student, provided that the school enforced a consistent and correct use of well-fitting masks and no direct physical contact occurred. So essentially, we have our mask mandate, we only have to do 3 feet. No mask mandate, regardless of if a family decides to mask their own children, we have to do 6 feet. This isn't the district's decision, it's the Maine Department of Education who put this into place. It's a rule that our school board doesn't control. We can greatly reduce the number of kids quarantined this year by having the mask mandate. The mask mandate reduces the need for keeping kids home and out of school. It reduces the probability that parents will have to take off work for 10 days to stay home with their exposed child. And it reduces the burden on teachers having to create remote learning for their students. And really, the teachers just want their students in the classroom. They are happiest when all of their students are present. I have a feeling a number of people who signed the petition to make the mask optional didn't realize this when signing it. There are people here tonight and at the last meeting who have strong feelings about masks, again, both for and against them. But we only represent a fraction of the parents in our community. I think there's a much larger group that wants their kids back in school as much as possible. If masks are what it takes to make that happen, they're willing to do it. We likely won't see many of them standing up here at a school board meeting because of their indifference on masks. They may not love them. I don't know that any of us really do love them, but they're willing to make that compromise so their kids can be in school. There will be quarantines this year. It's bound to happen with the number of cases being over 10 times higher than it was this last year. We already have quarantines that are in place before the kids even started school, as we heard earlier in the report. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict how much school will be missed because of quarantines, but using basics of math, I can tell you that it's going to be a lot fewer than it would be without the mask mandate. I understand people's anger and frustration. We have no clear timeline for when things will change, but this isn't a construction project. This is a global pandemic, and our school board is working to adapt to address the challenges. They picked a plan that allowed for the schools to reopen with all the students and selected an option that statistically allows for more students to have more in-person days. While it may not be the option that everyone was happy about, it's the option that's best serving our students. And I also want to read something that my daughter, who is 10 years old, wrote when I asked her what she thought about masks. And she said, not spelled everything correctly, but she said, "I don't mind wearing my mask. I forget I'm wearing it, and it's important to me that I protect my family and friends." I just want to point this out because what she's hearing at home totally influenced what she said here. If she was hearing that she was being abused or oppressed, she would be angry about wearing masks. We have an influence over our children, and they're going to wear masks. Let's try to make it positive. My son, I asked him how wearing his mask was, and he's like, "It was fine. I didn't need to practice." Because that's what we did before school started. We practiced. We made sure the mask was going to work for several hours, that it wasn't going to be a distraction. We found a mask that worked for him, and we made sure it worked right, and we encouraged them. We encouraged them to encourage their friends. I don't care where we sit on the science. We didn't know science was up for debate. We didn't cover that. But it's what the rule is, and it's going to help keep our kids in school. My kids were remote last year. Their teachers were amazing, but it was not the same experience. They want to be there. So many of their peers want to be there. So if we could just work to help our children with this, rather than telling them it's a negative thing, and help them have a positive, great year, like we've heard they are having from their teachers, from administrators, let's work towards that. I don't want to be here tonight. Sounds like you guys are going to be here, a lot more meetings, and I will be here, too. Don't want to speak up. I don't like to speak up. I don't like to ruffle feathers. But this is really important. We're dividing our community. We say we don't want to divide our community, and then we say very divisive things. So I will be here again, I guess. Don't want to. But I hope some people who are on the line, who may be thinking of signing a petition, will reconsider that it could be impacting them a lot more in their day-to-day lives. Thank you. We're up to 7 minutes.
statistics or anything like that. I'm not going to undermine what was said before me. I'm just a tired mom, flat out. I'm exhausted, and I'm sure you're tired too. And I just have questions and some comments because I feel like everybody's up here saying, let's get over this division and let's all come together. But listen to my side. I want to come together, but listen to me first. That's not how you come together when people are so stuck on on each side. Nobody's really listening. We're all listening to each other to pick apart what each other is saying, right? You're sitting here listening to what they're saying so you can pick it apart. They're doing the same thing to you. Nobody's here for community. You're here for your kids. People are telling you to do things with your kids, and some people really don't want to do that, and things get heated, and passions fly, because it's our children. They're the most important thing to every single person in this room. Everybody in this room has that in common. We all love our kids. So remember that when you want to treat people poorly or undermine what they say, because everybody's coming here from a place of love and just trying to do what they think is best for their kids, whichever side you're on. That being said, my son came home today and he had a great day, but he said, my mask rates already went down. I had 5 yesterday, I had 2 today. Last year he had none. So how do I tell my child who is he's 12, that doesn't want to go to school because of this? Because he feels like he can't see his friends smile and he can't wear it when he can't take it off. Now he can take it off outside, last year he couldn't. But there needs to be some, I guess, better laid out plans for these kids, especially the older kids. If they're gonna have mask breaks, they need to know that they're going to have them. They need to know that that's a part of their day. And they should be able to know that at every 2 hours, they're gonna get a break, or every hour and a half. That's not asking too much, okay? And then at the last meeting, one of the parents had asked at the end if the board had could plan to meet again to discuss this mask mandate. And at that moment, that was completely shot down. I was very disappointed to see that parents' questions weren't being written down. I watched from home, I watched the whole meeting. Parents' questions at the end of that meeting were not written down. They were disregarded. It was clear bias and not appropriate for the position that you people hold at that table. I'm sorry, you think I'm rude, but.
Yeah, right? You keep sleeping. Again. Miss Joanne.
Folks, let's limit the comments and let the folks that are at the podium speak.
I would like to ask the board to set up times. I understand it's a pandemic, I understand things are fluid and things change every day. I totally get it. I know you're in a difficult, impossible position. I don't envy you. I don't want to do what you do. But I don't think that I'm asking too much as a mother for you guys to plan some future meetings to discuss this stuff again. We can't leave ourselves and our kids in limbo, just wondering. And I'm not going to keep emailing and getting unanswered emails like I did last year, because I kept trying to get more answers to tell my kids when they'd be able to go back to school, and I got nothing in response. So that's why I'm here, is because my emails went unanswered. So I want my answers. I'm gonna give you the grace to write them down, and you can come back later with your answers. I don't expect you to have answers right now. But going forward, if the mask mandate is not changed, is there going to be a remote option for students that don't want to go? Because there are some. I know there's not a lot, but there are some. And their voices should be heard too. I also would like to know if, since I can take my kid right from this very building and take him into town to sit down at a restaurant with a friend and take his mask off, why can't our children take their masks off at their desks if they're properly spaced? I will happily have my child wear a mask in the hallway if he can take it off and see his friends' faces in the classroom. If they are properly spaced, there's no reason not to do it. And if you go to a restaurant yourself and eat dinner, then you are a hypocrite. for telling me that I need to mask my child all day long in this building. There is no.
Hi, I brought the baby, or at least I left him here this time. So my name's Catherine. I live in Green, and I have 3 kids in the district. Now, they are in high school. One's a 15-year-old, and then I have a 7th and an 8th grader. So I just wanted to kind of touch on a few different things as well. For starters, I started a Facebook group just to kind of be able to give parents a place to vent or to talk and discuss and just try and share resources and questions, comments, concerns, the whole gamut, which is how we were able to go ahead and start a petition and go around and talk to different people. And so I definitely wanted to touch on that. I had a couple of experiences, thankfully no one as rude as to Josh at the jump, mostly probably because I was walking around at practices, soccer, football, etc., while the parents were watching. And every parent, thank you so much, sorry to interrupt you watching your kiddo, scrolling through your phone, whichever, whomever, it's your time. You know, and can I talk to you about this? Would you like to sign? There was a few people that were rude, but not no super rudeness, you know, to the point that it was concerning. One in particular that I thought was, in my opinion, a little bit ironic. One group of 3 or 4 parents said no, that they definitely believed in the mask mandate, and that they felt it was the safest choice. So I moved on to the next group. I know. 2 parents went ahead and signed the petition while I was there. Group of kids on the floor, the ground, 3 or 4 of them. Another kid that was one of the parents from behind me, remind you that they did not want to sign because they want the mandate. The little girl asked about the youngest, probably about a year-old, ears pierced, a little girl. Oh wow, that's the youngest little girl that I've ever seen with her ears pierced. Folks behind me answer their daughter and say, yes, because we left it up to you, it was your body, your choice. Excuse me? The same people that are wanting to mask all of the children would like to then dictate, you know, I'm sorry, we're talking about the same things. And I feel as though, which also, I left it up to my daughter too. She didn't get her ears pierced until she was 9 years old. Her body, her choice. I seldom wear earrings. I didn't see the point of putting holes, but that's not my right to tell another parent how to be a parent. I might, in my mom group, say, hey, please use a professional piercer if you're going to do that to your child's ear, and then literally just saw a parent who the gun got stuck in the ear at Claire's, because don't go to Claire's, right? So if you're going to do it Safeway. But again, still not my job to tell you how to parent your child. And that's really what I think a lot of us are asking for, is that we get to make the choice and our children get to make the choice. Especially kids such as my 15-year-old, who is old enough to understand, I mean, kids aren't just picking this up from us. A lot of us parents are the first parents that are dealing with technology, where our kids are learning things all by themselves. And I can assure you, it's definitely not all of our kids just following their mom and their dad, because I get round and round heated discussions with my 15-year-old who disagrees with me about a lot of things, and it might be because I'm his mom, or it might be because he learned something a little differently. So it's not just the parents you know, forcing their kids, so to speak, to share their same opinion. So I wanted to touch on the mask breaks as well. I have already felt like, again, my kids are reporting the same, not as many as yesterday. My daughter, who came home with a headache already today, complaining, and she's not chronic to headaches. She doesn't get headaches on a regular basis, and she definitely had plenty of sleep. She was in bed by 8:30 last night. She was white. And, you know, we could chalk that up, sure, to first day of school, et cetera, we could chalk it up maybe to the mask. You know, I'm not going to go in and pretend that I know everything I'm talking about in regards to that. So I guess a lot of it, I just want to have a couple of things answered, so to speak, for questions. Sorry, I kind of toggled around on my phone out there. So can I ask if there is a specific, if it was in an email, I'm sorry I missed it, but what is the exact break policy for masks for the children? If that could be shared with us, because I don't remember seeing that. If I did, I'm sorry I missed it. Unless, of course, any of the actual people that are manning the ships at the school can answer that. Like, is there specific instructions?
Right, I think that's a great question to follow up on. Typically, how we handle questions that are asked in public comment is that we give folks an opportunity to gather that information and respond as well.
If there's a mask policy and it's specific and direct, 3 feet, et cetera, we don't also have something already in place across the board for all of the schools for a break? We don't have a policy for that. Seriously? I don't really feel like that's a follow-up question. If you don't already know that information, that's deeply concerning for parents who are for or against the mask policy. I would hope so. I would hope you want your child to have a break throughout the day other than just lunch. So do we not know what the specifics are? Is it every period for the ones that are actually transitioning classes? How often is it for the elementary school? I mean, there has to be a number.
So my understanding is that each school would have their own specific procedures that they employ throughout the day. Typically, that's how our schools handle things. Those specifics were not embedded in the superintendent's recommendation that she made to the board.
So is each school up to their own devices? They can make whatever rule on that they want? Should I email each school individually and ask specifically for their policy?
The principals are here right now, you could ask some of them. They're right in front.
So any of the questions need to go through me as chair. Certainly, that's not really fair to put folks on the spot as we go.
I mean, just 2 weeks ago when we met here, I did mention in my speech and then afterwards that mask breaks stopped being a thing, at least at 2 of the schools. Trip again.
You did, and if I recall correctly, it was at a relatively elevated point in our conversation as well. So you'll forgive my lapse.
So if the parents that are asking these questions don't get answers, what would be the appropriate response then? How would you like us to take it? Would you like us to be happy about that? I feel as though it's a simple question as to what the policy is, and as someone stated, they are all right here, they're attending for all of this information. Sure, can we ask that they email all the parents? I mean, that's a robo email that takes 2 seconds.
Yep, and I think the board, as you'll see as the discussion goes on this evening, the board does its best to answer questions that were posed. Certainly in our last meeting, we'll have some other things, and I think there were questions that were asked this evening that there are certainly discussion points around as well. So we can handle that in the same manner.
And I'm assuming, never mind, I won't assume, I'll just ask, do you have a time frame?
A time frame for?
That specific question, what is the breakdown for mask breaks?
Right. So as I think I just indicated, typically we try to get information to answer questions, obviously after the questions are asked.
But I don't understand why you can't answer
So
the question.
I'm gonna rely on the person who's at the podium who has the opportunity to speak right now. If there are other folks who would like to ask questions, you're certainly welcome to after you introduce yourselves and as we go along.
No worries, I will certainly go ahead and reach out to them all tomorrow via emails. Sorry in advance, thank you guys so much. Nothing directed towards anyone individually. The second is, again, have you put a precedent or is there anything, are we just at the CDC's mercy? Yes. Or are we looking for a specific case amount? Is that for Androscoggin, I assume, which I also take a little bit, do we really need to be lumped in with their numbers completely? I mean, if you look at the numbers for Turner, Leeds, and Green, 18 months in, it's less than 1,000. So, I mean, I take a little bit of an annoyance with that we're lumped in with Androscoggin, but we are nonetheless. So, is there a specific case number that we're looking for? Like, if we hit this amount of cases, we could flip to optional for however long, because there are some schools that are doing a light policy like green, red, yellow, something, and I didn't get to look into the validity of all of it, it's 4 kids, but do we have a specific case number in mind that we're looking for so that we could have some glimmer of hope?
No, I think you're exactly right. Some districts have elected to employ more layers in their policy from the standpoint of there being colors and shiny things like that. That was not a factor in the superintendent's recommendation to the board.
So the number for cases, are we going by cases, like new cases per day, 7-day average, is there a number?
No, so as I just said, that singular factor nor the color schemes were part of the superintendent's recommendation to the board.
So we have nothing that we're basing it on other than the CDC at this present moment? Okay, just wondering, okay. So we can't even calculate how long this might be. It could be a month, 2 months, the whole school year. Okay, cool. As someone asked before, can we try to at least agree to continue to maybe vote on this, weigh on this once a month, something, anything? Also, can I put it out there in a suggestion that instead of on this particular topic, could we do like a blind vote where you guys write down your votes and put them into a box or something, and then someone out, appoint a person and read them off? Because I feel a touch that people were looking around before their hands were raised last time, and I certainly know that, when I was walking around and speaking to some of the parents in the community, some of which worked for the school and not want to talk to me because they work for the district, which is sad because they should have a voice too. They work there, their kids go there, they should have a voice, but I feel like they're worried about backlash. So I'm just, as a way of making sure you guys can feel that you aren't put on the spotlight like last time, would you want to maybe do a blind, even with children we do it, like when I was a substitute teacher, we'd have the kids close their eyes and raise their hands for which game they wanted to play, so no one got mad that everyone wanted to play freeze dance. Like, is that a thing that you guys could consider? Maybe make us feel a little bit more like you're not being easily swayed, per se. This isn't just any other, it's a pretty important vote.
I'm super biased, but I'm pretty sure that most of the votes that the board takes are fairly important, but certainly there are different modes of operation the board could consider.
Sorry, a couple other quick questions and comments. I have them down. Okay, answered that. Didn't answer that. About that. And so someone might think this is a leap and stuff, but my kids are very animal conscious and stuff, and I know that COVID doesn't go in between animals and humans, but I do wonder if they did, would we require animals to wear a mask? Would we muzzle a dog for 7 or 8 hours a day? There are muzzles that allow them to still drink water or eat, I think, and stuff. But I feel like you would get animal control called on you if you did that every single day. So I just feel like, take that in mind, like when you're looking at animals and we feel like we maybe treat the animals a little bit better than the kids, ponder that. Okay, next one. Got that. Oh, okay, so looping back, I did work in a school for 3 years. And I'm sure there's many mandated reporters. I don't even know if it's every single teacher. I think I was one. I would report anyways if I saw something suspicious. But if before all of this craziness, a child came to school every single day in a mask because their parents made them, every single day for as long as they're in school, that wouldn't raise any eyebrows to any of the teachers. We wouldn't be a little bit like, what's going on in that household? Why is this kid being made to do this in hot weather and everything else? Like, I feel like eyebrows would raise. We would probably question that. We might even make a report, might get looked into. And yet we've all succumbed to just, it's normal now, and it's not. It's not. I mean, at some point, we do obviously want to get back to normal. I would hope everyone doesn't think this is going to be our new normal forever. He's 9 months as of tomorrow. So where is the line? Next December, am I having to mask him? I would really hope if we're 3-ish years into this, that we weren't still. So that's another thing. Where's the line? I mean, obviously a nice line would be, if we're basing it off cases, that would be a good start, but we're not. So okay. Sorry, he's heavy. So to touch base on someone with the ICU bed thing, and they're so overrun. For starters, I just called while I was in the hallway. CMCC has 20 ICU beds. They wouldn't actually answer how they were full because they said it was broken down into different little departments. 20 beds divided out, but that they couldn't answer whether or not each department was full or maybe full. So she didn't quite answer, but I mean, 20 beds, and doesn't necessarily just mean that it's for COVID, because I ended up in ICU for a week because I had gallstones. They created pancreatitis, and I had to have a gallbladder removed. So there are other cases at the ICU. So even if all 20 beds were full, which didn't get that impression, they're not obviously overrun. St. Mary's is 10 or 11. The nurse wasn't 100% certain. That's a little concerning. She doesn't know. She's on the ICU. I spoke to the ICU unit. She didn't, 10 or 11, and also didn't know if they were full or not. And that could have been just because she didn't want to answer that question because, yeah. So not quite overrun. Another thing is also to really try and think about the kids. So I have a stepdaughter, not really anymore, with divorce, but still think of her that way. She is now a senior. This all started when she was a sophomore. It's a lot for her to process that and I totally sympathize with the seniors and the seniors before that had, maybe a crappier experience. But to be this far into it already and to have her now be a senior, and this is how she's going to spend the rest of her senior year, and she doesn't have any kind of time frame. We are talking about almost adults here. And we, the parents, can't give our kids any more information. And we're frustrated because I don't know if I'm just the only one that sees it this way, but I kind of feel like you guys are the parents and you're just saying no. And I don't parent that way. I like to try and explain to my kids and really get them to have a voice. Maybe they'll say something I'm like, wow, I totally never even thought of it that way. That's awesome. And I have these conversations. So as someone touched on before, that's where I'd also like to, we can go back and forth and debate, and some of us love debate in school, but what are we going to do for kind of solutions? Where do we find that middle ground? Like, each side, so to speak, needs to start taking steps together to try to get some kind of a resolution, because indefinitely, and that's kind of what it feels like right now, is a long time. It's a long time for kids. And I want to be able to tell them, especially the older kids at high school level, that they're about to go off into the world, and they're not being treated like the adults that they're about to go into and be. So I feel like I would like to make that a little bit of a point as well. Oh, no, it's okay. And then I kind of wanted to, but I get leery about spitting different facts per se, because I look at the numbers and I see something, and we all looked at graphs, and you might see something a little bit differently, a different way, because you're looking at something, and I get that, it's all up to interpretation. But it was from, oh goodness, of course I would lose it. Sorry, buddy. Okay, sorry, let me go back real quick. Okay, it was from, and I can certainly try and find one that's from actually the United States, but this one was from the Journal of Royal Society of Medicine. It said, unmasking surgeons, the evidence base behind the use of face masks and surgery. So essentially it goes on to talk about, let's read. They looked into surgical face masks, splash, contamination, infection, and outcomes in order to identify salient publications. We also searched the guidance on surgical site infection from the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence. Furthermore, a manual search of reference lists from relevant papers were performed. It says that they had about 96% of their surgeons responded. They said that 20% found that surgeons only wore them because it was out of respect for tradition, that 30% of the responding surgeons felt that masks could make surgery more difficult by increasing breath condensation on spectacles, endoscopes and microscopes, and therefore obscuring vision. And then it went on to list how they didn't actually find, and I wish I could find the thing, but it's getting a little for me, the actual amount of which it decreased rate of infection, and I really wish I could find it, but I know it was less than 20%, so it was like they were literally thinking about not even having them because of the different problems that the surgeons were getting into. I'll definitely find it for next time. I mean, we'll be back, I'm sure. So anyways, those are my thoughts. I will email them. Ooh, I did have another quick question, and I'm not sure if it's related or whatnot, but in high school, why aren't the kids, and it could have just been this one HPT teacher, but said that kids weren't really allowed to go to the bathroom in HPT. And I've told my child that if he's feeling overwhelmed and can't catch a breath to go to the bathroom and take a mask break in the stall, you know, so then if we're limiting when our kids can go and they can't go during the instruction time and et cetera, again at a 15-year-old level when he's out working a job, and this one was actually a 17-year-old that said this, and hers specifically, I just wonder why that might be. Like, because HPT is also down. It's 15 minutes now, and it used to be 20 or 25. Okay. So now we're taking away a break, and it's because we needed to fit the luncheon. Okay, yeah. So now that little time that they had to decompress besides lunch when they're trying to shovel their food into their mouths and enjoy their mask break, which I'm not sure which mask break is when you're trying to shove food in your mouth, neither here nor there. So I just wondered if that was because of COVID, if something else is going on, or worried about students, I don't know, doing something about not having breaks okay. I will definitely ask her and report back to you for sure with more information. And then also, one other thing to point out, am I understanding this correctly, that if students are wearing masks and they're sitting 3 feet apart from each other, if someone in the class contracts COVID, as long as they weren't within 3 feet of each other, they do not have to quarantine. I just want to clarify. Yes? Is that the policy as I understand it? I don't mind going again, sorry.
Kim, can you touch on that, please?
Yes, so according to the main DOE, if there is a required masking, then in a classroom, instead of everybody having quarantine who's within 6 feet, it's only 3 feet or closer.
Okay. And again, not to call some of you out, but you're very close to each other, probably within 3 feet. You're all in our schools and running them, and what if one of you contracted and then all of you are out? Who's gonna run the schools? Again, not to single you out. I don't know if you're following mask policy. It's just something I noticed when you guys all sat down together, and some of you moved a little bit further away, but at first you guys were, and it's definitely been more than 15 minutes. Anyways, thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Crystal Nicholas Green. I have a very short question. My children have mask exemptions from their pediatrician, and they are instructed by the mask policy to wear face shields. As my son went to school today wearing his face shield, he reported he had difficulty seeing, as in, if you were writing something down, because this is an optical grade plastic. And I would just like to know what the mask policy would be for those children who have medical exemptions, who are wearing a face shield and trying to obey the rules, and they are experiencing headaches or not able to see when they're writing, or have difficulty with that. So that's something that could be discussed and gotten back to later date.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment at this point? So at this point, if there's nobody else who wishes to comment in public comment, I guess I'd circle back around on a couple of questions that were asked this evening and a couple of questions that were asked in communications after our last meeting. There were a couple of questions asked this evening on what sort of time, and also in communications about what sort of time frame there might be some sort of additional conversation outside of public comment regarding the recommendations around masks and where those things might be at. And we have 2 meetings in September. There's this one and the one on the, correct me if I'm wrong, 16th, 17th, somewhere in that range. And then we have 2 meetings in October, the 7th and the 21st, 28th. So the suggestion has been made to have this as an agenda item for discussion on October 28th, So at that point, we can have a full discussion again, whether that's a date that you would like to shoot for as far as that petition is concerned, or I just offer that up as a response to those questions around when this might be discussed again as far as an agenda item. There were also questions this evening and in email communication as well about remote options and possibilities around those for folks who had different feelings about their children accessing school with masks. And I believe either Superintendent Brandt or Assistant Superintendent Gillis had some information that they had hunted down as far as those opportunities that might be out there.
Relate to possibilities for remote options?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yes, so what happened was, I had asked Teresa to look into what's happening around the state and what opportunities there might be, but because I anticipated that the board might ask because it had come up at the last board meeting. She'll share that information right now. We don't offer a remote option ourselves because we need all of our teachers and staff because we have all our students back right now. So Teresa will share what she's learned.
So, as Kim said, I did a survey to districts across the state of Maine. I received 44 responses. 38 districts are not offering a remote learning option. In terms of options for remote learning or alternative learning options, for elementary students, it would include the following: that the district purchases seats to online school, Founders Academy. Founders Academy recommends that a dedicated adult work with a student at home. Students would remain enrolled in MSAD 52, thus counting towards our subsidy, and the district would pay, I believe it's around $1,000 per student for that remote option. Another option for elementary students would be to homeschool, with the parents and guardians fully responsible for the child's education. They choose the curriculum and determine the student's needs and assessments. Students are no longer enrolled in MSAD 52, so that would be an impact to the subsidy. Options for middle and high school students include the district purchased seats into the online school Founders Academy. Last year, this option was used for the first semester. However, due to feedback from stakeholders, we discontinued the program for the second half of the year. If we were to go with this option, like the elementary, students would remain enrolled in MSAD 52, thus counting towards the subsidy. For middle and high school students, the cost is also, I believe, approximately $1,000. Another option for middle and high school students is to enroll in a free virtual charter schools. There are two: Maine Connections or Maine Virtual Academy. If this happens, there's no cost to anyone, but the students are no longer enrolled in MSAD 52. Also, an option for middle and high school students would be homeschool, where again the parents and guardians are fully responsible for the child's education. They choose the curriculum, determine the student's needs, and the students are no longer enrolled in MSAD 52.
Thank you. So in earlier discussions around what the recommendations were going to be for this school year, it seemed that our administrative team, our teachers, felt fairly strongly that the most impactful thing we could do educationally for our kids was to have in-person instruction 5 days a week, and that was one reason why these remote options were not particularly appealing. Is that accurate?
I believe that's accurate.
Thank you. Jessica?
So I think you said this, Teresa, but I just want to make sure I heard it. If we were to look at a remote option for students that their families chose for them not to come to school because of the mask mandate or another reason, would we have to hire additional staffing?
We do not have staff to do a remote option. So we would use one of the remote options that I reviewed. I mean, if the board decides that they want to do that. The remote option of Founders Academy would maintain the students as a subsidy count, but there would be a cost of $1,000 approximately per student to the district, and they would stay enrolled in the district. There is some responsibility on the school's part in terms of enrolling the students, and it is labor intensive, but I don't believe we would hire additional people to do that work. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Crystal?
Can you just repeat the second charter school? I didn't catch the name.
Yes, Maine Virtual Academy and Maine Connections.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so as I indicated, we'll do our best to answer questions that were asked through this process, and we'll continue to do that as we go. I would also like to share a couple pieces of communication that came my way after our last meeting. One that was pretty disconcerting, really, was one from a board member from Green, who's now a former board member. She specifically indicated that due to recent events regarding mask mandates, I no longer feel safe to serve on this board. So when we talk about unity and coming together as a community, I think we'd be well served to think about how we're interacting with other folks, and that the interactions were such that a board member felt harassed to the extent that they no longer felt safe serving on this board. Certainly doesn't seem like the MSAD 52 that I believe that we live in. So I think that kind of wraps up our public comment. I appreciate folks speaking this evening, taking the opportunity to share your thoughts with the board and ask questions so that we can certainly follow up on those. Jessica?
So can I just reiterate a few questions that I want to make sure we follow up on?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I don't want to nitpick and rebuke things because I don't think that's what you guys want or what you're here for, but there were a few questions that I would like to make sure we follow up on and have some responses for. So the first gentleman who talked about the air purification, a lot of what you were talking about is honestly over my head. I know that we put in the O2 Prime. We had a chance to speak to the vendor, and he talked a lot about what that would do and the safety in the air. But if there are specifics that you need from us or would like from us, I really think that has to be talked to by the vendor, not by those of us who, that's not my specialty. I'm just gonna go through my things real quick, sir. So the other piece that I really think that we need to talk about or look into more is those mask breaks. So I think it's a good opportunity for the admin to come back next time and maybe give us more of that information when you do your talk. A better laid out plan communicated to the families. I mean, that'll make everybody feel better. So if we can just hear some of that next time. You spoke to the remote option. Thank you, Teresa, for that. And then the last piece, the last lady spoke about the exceptions by the PCP and what our policy might be on that. So I don't know if we can have maybe one of our school nurses talk to that, or if that would be from the admin themselves, but I think that would be very worthwhile to follow up on.
Thank you. And thanks again to folks for being here this evening, and certainly for those that are tuning in at home as well. So at this point, we'll move on to old business, which we don't actually have any of, and move right along into the consent agenda. Consent agenda does have additions to it this evening on our revised agenda, so just a reminder that we're on that, and I would entertain a motion for that list. Yuri? Second. Jessica? All those in favor? Unanimous. That brings us to new business. New business 9.1, approval of donation for 24 filled backpacks from Turner resident Tom Rose. We have a motion for that one? Crystal, do we have a second?
Second.
Yuri, discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. 9.2, approval of $250 cash donation to Tripp Middle School for Tiger Takeout Pantry. Jessica, do we have a second? Crystal, discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. 9.3, discussion of additional unanticipated state subsidy. And Kim, you had mentioned this last time, and I think board members were interested in hearing a little bit more detailed sorts of recommendations or options around that. So Kim, when you get back to your seat, if you could walk us through what you just handed out to board members, and I'm sure there are additional copies if anybody was terribly interested in that, but we could hunt some down.
I have a few copies here, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I just gave to you, we are receiving some additional unanticipated state subsidy in the amount of about $665,000 this year. So at the last board meeting, we discussed that this is something we wanted to talk further about and how we should handle this unanticipated additional subsidy. And the board directed me to take a look at some of the district needs and bring a couple of possible suggestions for how that money would be handled to start the conversation this evening. So what you have in front of you are two possible draft plans for how to deal with that additional state subsidy. Do you want to walk right through them, Betsy?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the first draft plan, we would perhaps increase the general facilities reserve fund that we currently have by $415,000. And we have some specific items that could benefit from that. There's certain things that we have put off. We deferred some things that need to get done. One of those things is some support for the parking lots at the high school at $250,000. The gym floor at the high school needs to be refinished. That's been put off for several years. We have some doors and windows that will fit potentially under our ESSER money, our federal money, but we have some that are going to be beyond that, and so the recommendation would be to invest some money in those things that need to be replaced and repaired. And then the $45,000 would be $45,000 to increase that fund, that reserve account, just because we never know what might come up. So that would be good. We also might consider, the board might consider an increase in the technology reserve. As you know, we spent some of the federal emergency relief funding to purchase one-on-one devices for every single student. We've not had that before in our district, but now every single child has a one-on-one device. So 4, 5, 6 years from now, we'll be looking at a replacement schedule for those. So we started a technology reserve in the FY22 budget of, I believe, $50,000 on 15. I'm not sure if you can check that right now. So this would be to increase that a little further, knowing that that cost will be coming forward in the future, a little bit down the road. This possible draft proposal would be to return some of that money to the towns for tax relief. That would be maybe $200,000, and the way that that's divided is by the shares that the towns contribute to the school budget. So green would be about 33% of that share at about $66,800. Leeds would be at about 18% of that at $36,000. And Turner is about 48% of that, which would be around $97,000. Those numbers would add up to the $665,000. So that's a possible draft plan 1. Possible draft plan 2 is basically the same. The difference is, would the board want to consider using less money for the parking lots at the high school? In other words, not do everything that needs to be done, but do something towards it, and instead add another additional $100,000 to return to the towns for tax relief. So that $300,000 of that $665,000 would potentially be returned to the towns, and that would mean that Green's 33% would be just over $100,000. Leeds, again at 18%, would be about $54,000, and Turner at about 48% would be close to $146,000. And Betsy, the idea behind this was just so the board is well aware of some of the needs that we know we have, and also to prompt the discussion.
Thank you. So I think at this point, in order to continue the discussion, certainly board members could make a motion suggesting which of these draft plans they might prefer, and we could go from there.
I'll make a motion to consider draft plan number 2, returning a little bit more money to the towns for tax relief.
Do we have a second for that? Looked like a whole bunch of seconds. Again, Teresa, I'll leave that to you to choose a second on that one. So discussion on the motion, Jessica.
So, and maybe this is for Evan, I'm not sure. So if we do the lesser amount to the Levitt parking lot, what doesn't get finished?
And Evan's gonna go to the microphone. So
I'm gonna try. What we do not know is what the exact figure would be to do the whole thing. So what I can't say is exactly what would get done and what wouldn't get done. What needs to get done is we have some major cracking forming in our parking lots. And I think from the one conversation I've had with a paving person, the cracks are getting to a point where they're so wide that the grasses spread them out and the frost has spread them out, that you can't just fill them with that goopy stuff to fill in the cracks. We actually have to surface over them. I would want to get a second opinion on that because that's a pretty expensive undertaking to repave the entire parking lot. So in figuring out what exactly needs to be done to do it and do it right, we have to get a second opinion on that to find out exactly how much it's going to be and then how much we have. And we could probably do either one parking lot instead of 2 parking lots, or we could figure out what square area we could do with the money we had.
So follow up to that, if we should vote for the higher 250 and there is leftover, can we determine that is then passed to the town?
That's not my question.
Yeah, I don't know who it's going to.
Yeah, I'm going to look at Dean.
So, and just to, were you asking Dean, or were you?
I was. Dean, did you hear the question?
I didn't hear the question.
Okay.
So I think Jessica's question was if we, and I'll probably expand on it a little bit just because these are, and just to refresh everyone, I guess the projects that are on the list there that we would consider utilizing that increase in the general facilities reserve fund for our projects that we've been talking about for an amount of time and have showed up in our budgets a number of times and have not made it to over the finish line, I think is probably the best way to put that on these. So these are projects that we know are on the horizon. We've had questions from folks, so what does our long-term capital needs sort of plan look like? And these are the ones that are pretty close to the top on those needs and things that we would certainly address through that general facilities reserve fund. So I think, so Jessica's question was more along the lines of if we went with draft plan 1 that adds $415,000 to the general facilities reserve fund, would we then have flexibility if we didn't need that entire amount for the parking lots to send more back to the towns, or is that pick one and go forward with it? What's your impression of our options?
What you do is you take that vote to reserve a dollar amount, and it is reserved for facilities projects. And we know which specific project you have some flexibility in that. Certainly, if you don't spend all the money, you can take a vote later on, like the next fiscal year, to decide, if there's any action you want to take with that, which could include sending money back to the town as well.
Thank you. Does that answer your question? Other discussion on this one? I just would like to kind of circle back around to the earlier semi-explanation. We know that there's a longer list than just those items as far as facilities needs and anticipated facilities needs over time. So I think the board has discussed over the last couple of years what flexibility we may have in utilizing reserve funds to fund some of these projects. We know that they're out there, and certainly getting in the habit of doing some of those things is a step in the right direction. And the same goes for that technology reserve. We do understand that there were some pretty extraordinary funds that came the district's way this last year and a half or so, and that some of the tremendous additions that we made come with some costs further down the line. So we do want to be prepared for those as well. Other discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor? Those opposed? One opposed? Motion carries. And thank you, Kim, and the rest of the administrative team for bringing back details to help that discussion along for this agenda. That brings us to item 9.4, first and second reading and acceptance of recommended deletion of policy CHCAA, school handbooks. Do we have a motion? Yuri, do we have a second? Crystal. Discussion on this one. I guess just a procedural question, either Teresa or Joanne. Some of these deletions, when we delete a policy, typically is that, why do we do that?
They're all policies that we don't have to have, right?
They are not required policies, like Joanne said, and in some cases, it's really just district practice. Handbooks go out, both district ones and the district one is now being put on the website. So it's not that they're required for us to do, and we're really trying to clean up the policies and make the policies be the ones that are required or that we believe the board would want in place.
So when we see a deletion like this, that doesn't necessarily mean a change in practice.
No, and we discussed that, so certainly if you want to ask us for each one, we may have a different reason.
Thank you. Other discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Brings us to 9.5, first and second reading and acceptance of recommended deletion of policy CHD, administration in the absence of policy. Do we have a motion on that one? Jessica?
Second.
Yuri? Discussion on this one. Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. 9.6, first and second reading and acceptance of recommended deletion of policy DFCA, charges for district services. Do we have a motion on that one? Jessica, do we have a second? Second from Yuri. Discussion on this one. Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. At Item 9.7, first and second reading and acceptance of recommended deletion of policy DJJA, authorization to commit district funds for special education. Do we have a motion for this one?
Yes.
Yuri, second. Crystal? Discussion on this one. Jessica?
Can you explain this one, Teresa?
Yes, it is not required, and it is a practice that we have in place. So we did not believe that it was a policy that we needed to have. Do you want more than that for an explanation?
So this would be a change in policy, but would not be?
No.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
So not a change in practice with
It's
this
not a
one?
change in practice. Each year, in roles as administrators, part of our job responsibility is to commit funds for special education if the individual education team decides that it's necessary.
Thank
And
you.
there are checks and balances within that. So if a student is recommended for out-of-district placement, the special ed director or assistant director are part of that conversation, part of that meeting.
Other discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous? So our other two items on the agenda are executive sessions. One to discuss non-contracted employees' salaries, and one to discuss TTEA ESP negotiations. Do we have any other items of business that we need to take up while we still have folks in attendance? If not, I would entertain a motion for 9.8, and that is an executive session to discuss non-contracted employees' salaries pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056A. Crystal, do we have a second? And Yuri. All those in favor? Unanimous. So we will be in executive session for these two. Thanks again, folks. That's something that the town of Greene will work on, so certainly be in contact with them.
Okay. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.